If you're looking to buy a stacked NBA 2K account with max badges and more, visit sportstmb.com. He has been in the community for years and has hundreds of reviews. Click the first link in the description to get your account today.
I am less than 75 subscribers away from 60K. I would like to hit it tonight, so if you enjoy this video, I would really appreciate it if you subscribed. I don't know if you can hear that echo, but I'm in a new room because I moved, and that's part of the reason why I haven't been uploading. That and what happened to Kobe kind of just had me numb for 2.5 days, but should have a video after this one out Monday, Tuesday at the latest. But as I was saying, please subscribe to the channel if you enjoy this video. There are many more like it to come and many more that are already on this channel. So with that said, with the All-Star selections that came out a few days ago, there sparked some controversy with guys like Bradley Beal, Zach LaVine, and Devin Booker not making the All-Star team, while counterparts like Kyle Lowry, Chris Middleton, and Domantas Sabonis made it, who many people view as not quite All-Star worthy. I disagree on two of those. After the 50 bomb that Chris Middleton had, he had been averaging like 20 points on 50, 40, 90, which is nuts. And Kyle Lowry is a guy who is definitely deserving of being an all-star. It annoys me when people don't see how talented and impactful that guy is. But regardless, this happens every year. There are people even complaining about Rudy Gobert making the team, which should speak to the ignorance of some NBA fans. This should be Gobert's third All-Star appearance, not his first. Dude is a top 20 player at the very least, and the fact that people have a problem with him making the team saddens me because it really shows the ignorance of some people. But I have some suggestions for ways that we could change the All-Star voting that could keep this uproar to a minimum down the line, as well as a few other suggestions for the All-Star weekend as a whole. I don't have 5 suggestions for the voting. I have 3 for the voting and 2 for in general, but I wanted to put a focus on the voting. So we're going to start with the changes to All-Star voting, and first we have number 1. Set a criteria for who is an all-star. I saw a tweet the other day after these teams came out that the NBA should rename the NBA All-Stars to the NBA Playoff All-Stars. And that's pretty much how it's been. Literally just 2 of the 26 All-Stars this year are on non-playoff teams, those 2 being Trae Young and Brandon Ingram. Now, if this is the criteria, that's fine, but as of now, there is no even vague notion of what this achievement criteria is at all. And that is a problem that leads to people having the anger that they do. Things that could be changed, I'm not too sure. I don't want to necessarily set a baseline for wins or statistics because all of that stuff can apply in context that could leave players like Draymond Green and Al Horford out of the mix, even though they are deserving of the all-star selections that they've made in the past. So you can't really set a statistical deadline. What you could put as a criteria is games played. That would prevent people from whining about Karl Anthony Towns and Paul George not making the team. And then for fan voting, it would prevent people from voting for people like Kyrie Irving and Stephen Curry to make the All-Star teams. Because a good amount of the voting from the fans in the NBA was for Curry and Kyrie Irving, despite Kyrie at the time having played like 13 games when the voting started and Curry having played 3. So set a criteria for the time voting starts and a criteria for the time it's all confirmed, and I think you could prevent things like this from happening. Number 2 is actually a good way to solve number 1, and that helps with a more average criteria for each location in where the basically bench versus reserves. I don't know why I'm describing it like this. And my suggestion would be remove coach voting for the reserves. Well, in better terms, spread it out evenly between fans, coaches, and players for starters and bench. There is no reason at all for the starters and the bench to have 2 different criteria for voting. also the media is in there somewhere. I'm not entirely sure. I don't know that the balance should be 25, 25, 25, 25, but there should not be only one section of the influence of the NBA having an entire impact on just the bench. The problem with having coaches influence the entirety of the bench is that coaches value winning. The reason that tweet of this should be the playoff all-star roster exists is because coaches just value winning that much. Now, of course, winning is important, and it should be a factor to an extent, but it can also be very circumstantial. The Suns not winning is not Devin Booker's fault. The Wizards not winning is not Bradley Beal's fault. It's not Zach LaVine's fault the Bulls have the worst coach in the league and multiple injuries. It's the team around them not being good enough. And I don't think it's fair to punish guys like that because they are stuck in a bad situation. They're already being punished enough from having a horrible team around them. Why also punish their individual accolade of the All-Star game because of a factor that is outside of their control? Coaches should not vote for the reserves exclusively because that leads to someone like Domantas Sabonis making the All-Star game over someone like Bradley Beal, who is clearly a better player. I value Domantas Sabonis a lot. He's a very good offensive center, great passer, good finisher, good rebounder, but he's not an all-star, especially over Bradley Beal. I also despise the notion that the Pacers had to have an all-star because they're good, but if no one on their team is playing at an all-star level, which none of them were, then no, they don't have to have an all-star. Just like the 2015 Atlanta Hawks didn't necessarily have to have an all-star if Al Horford and Paul Millsap were not all-star level. Kyle Korver and Jeff Teague should not have been a part of that all-star roster, but that's a whole nother thing. Basically, just because your team's good does not mean you need to have an all-star if you do not have an all-star caliber player on your team. But anyways, number 3, remove conferences from voting for God's sake. The reason a second ago that I mentioned Sabonis being in place of Beal is because Sabonis could not possibly be in place of someone like Devin Booker because conferences. Beal and Sabonis are both in the East, so Beal is snubbed directly because of Domantas Sabonis. This is not how it should be at all. When the NBA announced last year that they were doing team drafting with Team Giannis and Team LeBron, I was really excited because I thought it meant an end to conferences being a factor in everything about the All-Star game and in the voting. But that was not the case. The NBA All-Stars should be the 26 best players in the NBA, not the 13 best in each conference, because there can be an imbalance in talent based off of the conference, and a player should not be punished because he is in a more stacked Western Conference. Last year, Nikola Vucevic was an All-Star and Rudy Gobert was not. Why? Because conferences. There are many examples of this throughout history, where conferences have had an imbalance in talent, and because of that imbalance, there is no reason for conferences to be a factor. It only hurts the NBA All-Star game because it means non-deserving players are in and deserving players are out, which causes a worse product during the All-Star game and is unfair to the accolades that should be going to certain players and shouldn't be going to others. But moving on to the general All-Star suggestions. Number 4, add a one-on-one contest. Now, this is not an original idea by me. It has been mentioned by many other people prior to this. I believe Mike Korzemba even made a whole video on this specific idea, but this would be a whole lot more fun than the fucking skills challenge. Can you tell me who won the skills challenge last year? Can you? Well, it was Jason Tatum, in case you did not know. Unless you're a bigger NBA nerd than me, which is an impressive feat, or a fan of Jason Tatum, you probably did not know that. Do you know who won it in 2018, the year prior? The only reason I do know now is the player mentioned it in a statement recently, that player being Spencer Dinwiddie, who said he didn't expect to be voted an All-Star because he was not invited to the 2019 Skills Challenge after winning it in 2018, which I think the fact that he wasn't invited after winning it shows that even the NBA doesn't give a shit about the Skills Challenge. As a matter of fact, when I go and look up these players' accolades, won the skills challenge doesn't even show up on most websites listing off things they've accomplished. No one cares about it. No one gives a single shit about the skills challenge, so remove it and replace it with something that is far more interesting to watch and will be far more talked about, the one-on-one challenge, because it would make the superstars of the NBA potentially have some bets on it, some public things. Stories like, let's say, prime Tracy McGrady, and as much as it sad as me, prime Kobe, having talked about their one-on-one matchup where they seem to disagree on the score. What if that happened in the All-Star game and it was in front of the whole world to see? Something like that. Say Kevin Durant versus Giannis, Steph Curry versus Kyrie. Things like that would be very fun to watch, and it's just not available in favor of the skills challenge. Seriously, I cannot stand the skills challenge and its existence. But finally, number 5, this has been talked about as well. Incentivize the players to try harder during the game. I do not know how you do that, but you do it. Be it money, some sort of perks. The NBA can afford it, I guarantee you. You don't have to worry about these players caring, taking away from the fun of the game. It's 26 of the best players in the league. I would prefer, rather than a bunch of ridiculous alley-oop and dunk attempts and three-pointers from damn near half court, I would prefer to see 26 of the best players in the league going at each other for a full 48 minutes of a basketball game. It would be more fun to see that talent fight with each other rather than just seeing a bunch of ripped millionaires basically play an overpriced pickup game at 40% effort. Watching them actually compete would be more fun. And incentivizing that, say each player gets $1 million on the winning team, something like that. That would be huge. And that would make the game a lot more fun to watch. But anyways, those are my suggestions for how the NBA can fix All-Star Weekend. Please be sure to like and subscribe for more NBA content like this, and cue the outro music.